How do you know if you are being brainwashed? In the last segment, I mentioned a little bit about leader worship, and I want to try to break down a little more for you how that comes to pass. So, how in the world does a leader build himself up to the point where you, the follower, might be worshiping him and not even know it? Maybe you don't even catch this. To understand brainwashing, you need to think of it like intellectual bullying. That's right, intellectual bullying, but it is subtle. Now, just because of the dynamics of life, there are more poor people than there are rich people. And in the same regard, there are more dumb people than smart people. That does not mean there's a lack of information. That doesn't mean there's a lack of smart people. But just by and large, there are more people that are not as smart as the smart class. Now, this is part of God's economy. There's also the fallout of sin. But God created us to need each other. And so there are those that are incredibly talented with their hands. There are those that are incredibly talented with music. There are those who are incredibly talented with literary abilities. There are those who are incredibly talented with their bodies and being able to perform like athletic type venues and whatnot. So God created each of us with certain abilities, and because there's so many different genres of abilities, like being smart is a small part of the whole. Smart people have their place in this world, just like everyone else, but they shouldn't have a preeminent position just because they are smart. And by preeminent position, I don't mean a leadership role. What I mean is that they should not be worshiped. Now, because there are a limited number of smart people over a class of sheep, there's typically a shepherd to sheep, there are some of these smart guys out there that will bully those that are inferior to them in information and in intelligence. And this is terrible, but it is absolutely happens. And let me explain how this happens. First of all, this intelligent person will have some kind of charm to them. They will be likable. They will be favorable. They will be able to just come in, whoa, man, I am amazing and you should like me. Man, I like you. Do you like me? And they should promote an essence of magnetism to some degree, and they will attract people to themselves. There will be an upfront magnetism to these people, and they will return to this charm again and again, offsetting it against their bullying of others. Now, because they are naturally smarter, a lot of times they have learned to exploit the knowledge gap. And so they will very much invest themselves in knowledge, and in large amounts of knowledge. It's like this gives them more intellectual bullying power in their sphere. And so as they store this all up, they begin to use this information not to build up the people around them, but for emotional advantage. And here's what I mean by that. If somebody comes along, and is especially in a biblical setting, and somebody comes up and like, hey, I got a few questions. And the guy responds with, you don't know what the Council of Nicaea is? You don't understand Pelagianism? Like, what's wrong with you? Or can you not connect the dots? Are you not smart enough to figure this out? Do you not read? The insult there is emotional bullying. And let me say this, it is more effective the nicer the insult is. The more this bullying insult is wrapped in niceness, the more effective it is to crush down a person on the inside so that their temporary savior can rescue them with this fantastic amount of knowledge and charm that they have. They can push you down, then they can push themselves up, and you need them more. It's intellectual bullying. They will belittle a person or attack their esteem, their self-esteem, or they will come after a weak spot in life and they'll just exploit it. And they'll be like, man, I can't believe you didn't know that. Like, that's kind of easy to understand. And then they will begin to promote and suggest the idea that maybe you should leave the thinking to me. You know, like, you're good at this, but maybe you shouldn't think on these things because, you know, like, it's obvious I'm more qualified at thinking, and I've got the answers. And man, I will absolutely help you pour on the charm. I will help you, but man, you should probably leave the hard concepts along and just kind of trust me. You need to absorb the information that I give you. You need to be willing to readily receive it and to not question it and to just absorb and soak it up. Not the Bible, not necessarily the truth, but you should absorb that person's teaching. Now, you can rest assured this person will build their image. They will focus on building the group. They will even build up a body of teaching, but they are not going to be so much interested in building you up. And I'm not talking about the performance you. I'm not talking about the success you. I am talking about maturity. If they were interested in building up maturity in you, then they most likely would have to kind of deflate themselves because all of a sudden you're beginning to come up to a peer-like status with them. And that's the last thing they want. So I wanted you to understand a little more about brainwashing, how a person will intellectually bully someone. He will belittle them with nice insults, but he basically promotes the idea that, like, it's dangerous for you to go around thinking, let me just present the information to you and then you'll be well armed. And this can be categorized, and you can see this in people's lives, when instead of putting ideas and concepts into their own terminology because, you know, they've meditated upon it, they've chewed upon it, they've matched it with logic and reality, no, they just begin to quote verbatim statements from some higher up that they worship. I hope you find this information useful, and I pray that God will help you to identify these problem people in your life.